All right. Public comment, or is there anybody who would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none. Approval of minutes, send out the minutes to everyone. Hopefully you have taken a look at it. If there's anything you want to change, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
And, Corey second.
Yep.
Nikki? Oh, now I need her to approve. Okay, I'll move to somebody else. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, Bill,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Myrna? Yes. Betsy, yes, okay. All right, next, administrative matters. Couple of things here. One is in November. Our next meeting is November 11th, which is Veterans Day. Is that a problem for anybody?
Yeah. This is my daughter's birthday.
Oh, okay. So if we're not going to meet on November 11th, I need to find another day that we can meet.
That's the 10th.
How's the 10th,
Good work. Is the room available? That's the question.
Patrick?
It should be,
The Monday.
Who's mine?
like it's available.
Okay, so the 10th. Everybody, you mark your calendars, please. The meeting after that is on November 20. That's Thanksgiving week. Are people traveling on that day? Or booking?
Probably over.
I think it's true. Is that gonna be a problem for anybody?
Not
No.
me.
Okay, let's keep it then. All right. The other thing I want to just give you, everybody an update on is that, we've been talking about the town survey, which won't happen until early 2026. But, at this point, I've reached out to two organizations, the Collins Center, to give us a proposal for doing it, and the UMass Lowell Policy Institute, who did the survey for those of us who looked at the Natick one, they did that survey. So I have two proposals in. We're gonna meet with the folks and then come in with a recommendation for this group.
Is that a telephone survey?
No, it's gonna be, well, it depends on what we decide.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a written survey. It's gonna be a maybe electronic, it may be written, it may be a whole lot of different things, and we need to decide what it's gonna be.
Telephone surveys, that would.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be telephone. I think the telephone may use the telephone to tell people surveys are gonna be in the mail or whatever. And we haven't really decided on the format of it. And we've asked each of the organizations to provide us with an example of the kind of work that they've done, so we can see what they've done. I would like to ask for volunteers to be on that subcommittee when we get to it. And so, if you have any experience with surveys, that would be terrific. But if anybody's interested, please send me an email to me only, so we don't violate any sort of open meeting law kind of thing. That would be great. Okay. Okay, subcommittee updates. I will start with ours because it's quick. We have done to date 14 interviews. We have 6 more to go. And hopefully we can finish up by the end of next week. So we're running a skosh behind, and then we'll get together as a committee. I'm consolidating all the input into a ginormous Excel spreadsheet. And so we'll meet and figure out how we're gonna organize the data so we can share it with you. And whether, we give you everybody's comments, so you can read the raw comments in addition to the organization and stuff, but we'll figure it out and then get back to you on that. Russ, is there anything from your group?
No, we're gonna meet Friday, so no update.
Okay. I do know the website's up and running and has everything there, so. If you haven't had a chance to go check it out, you should do so because it's good. So that brings us to Pat.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think you all got a copy of the most recent updated charter. So I thought we would kind of proceed, maybe go back to some of the things we mentioned, but try to get further, try to get through all of this language, even if you don't make decisions on everything, give input, because it would be fantastic to get through this language and talk a little more. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about is you had some questions on 1.1 for the division of power section. What I heard from you was your concern that I heard two concerns. One, that, you felt uncomfortable saying that the executive branch was the select board. I heard that you felt there were more duties, more boards involved in the executive branch. And two, I heard a little bit of a concern about what is the difference between the executive and legislative functions. So I put together some new language that added, well, we'll talk about it a little more, but added a section where I said, notwithstanding this section, some executive branch functions may be performed by elected boards and committees pursuant to Article 4. Since we added this, I'm going to tease it out to say some functions may be exercised, and I'm going to include elected and appointed boards. But just to that's not the type of language that's normally included, but I can understand your concerns and I wanted to address them.
Okay. I'm unclear. I mean, I wasn't left with the impression that we questioned the whether executive branch was the select board. I think we questioned the fiscal part of being the select board because
My
that,
recollection.
so I think in my understanding, that's what we questioned, and that town meeting, and I know there's words for this and you can correct me, but it's like approves and appropriates and does something. What are the terminology that we use? But town meeting is the one who approves and appropriates funds, and the executive branch, the select board,
Raise and appropriate.
raise and appropriate. That's what it is. Raise and appropriates the funds, and then the executive branch is the one who manages the spending of it.
Right.
Contracts, they enter into contracts, they, do all of that sort of stuff. So to me, that was the issue, not that, unless I missed something from other people.
I had a question on the town administrator, the select board being the only executive branch, because school committee, Board of Health, planning board, they all have their own executive functions.
They do, and I did include, that's why I included that notwithstanding language. However, and I'm sorry to make you go back and forth. Could you put up the other document that I shared with you? I did put together just a little memo where I noted some of the language from other charters, because I wanted you to see where this language came from. So for example, just so you know, this is, we can absolutely make changes. And my thought on this is maybe we save some of that for the end when we've gone through and looked at all the other sections and what everybody's done. So you can understand it a little bit better. But so, Dedham, for example, used language which I used a little bit more when I updated the language, basically saying the administrative, combining the two of all the fiscal, prudential, and municipal affairs shall be vested in a legislative branch. It consists of a representative town meeting an executive branch should be headed by a select board. So it kind of collapses those to show the overlap. Reading has a little, very much the language that it used originally, which basically says fiscal, prudential, and municipal affairs vested in executive branch headed by and their Board of Selectmen. That's now the select board, and administered by the town manager. Representative town meeting shall exercise all legislative powers. So town meeting, just to be clear, it's more than the spending and the appropriation. I mean, it's more than the appropriation. They're the legislative function. They're the ones who approve the bylaws, and a lot of other things. So legislative encompasses more than just
Right.
that part of it.
I'm uncomfortable with the Reading one.
Right.
And given what's going on nationally, the town meeting appropriates the money, but what if the select board refuses to spend it?
Right.
And towards the end of the fiscal year, the Ways and Means initiative moves money from different budget lines, but there is state law which caps the amount in the form of a percentage of the budget. I think it's 5%, was it?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Yeah,
It's meant to just, take care of minor sums to
yeah.
balance a few things out.
And for many departments, there's always some money left over
Right.
unspent.
Someone spent $5 too much, so we had to take it out of somebody else's budget where they didn't spend it.
Yeah, I was on Ways and Means with Paul Saber on the first came here, and they were moving me in. I said, that's general law, something or other.
So anyhow, so Reading, you're uncomfortable with.
If you can,
Yeah.
there's a couple more if you want to
Okay.
scroll down. Walpole doesn't really have something up front saying division of power, so I just showed where it was divided into different sections in the, about town meeting. It talks about the representative exercise all power vested in the municipal corporation is consistent with the charter. I don't love this language either. It's old language. I just want you to see it. And select board, all executive authority of the town government shall be vested in a select board, etc. Called the select board members, and they'll have all the powers, duties conferred upon select boards under the Constitution, general laws, town bylaws, and this charter. So, that's another way of doing it. And then Winchester simply says is similar to the first, authority for management of all fiscal prudential and municipal affairs shall be vested in the executive branch, headed by Board of Selectmen, administered by a town manager. A representative town meeting shall exercise all legislative powers of the town.
So what does that mean? A representative town shall exercise all legislative powers of the town. That's subject to some pretty wide interpretation.
Well, it's not, because there are legislative functions defined, in state law. There's legislative functions defined in case law, and we have a legislative, town meeting session.
If we take that and add something about, appropriating whatever.
Yeah, like all legislative powers of the town, including, you can say including,
Including the,
the appropriation, I think let me just pull something up.
Raise and appropriate.
Raising appropriate.
Well,
And
To some
raise and
extent,
appropriate,
the
we have
executive-
Authority to transfer.
Right.
Yeah.
and we don't want to really micromanage to limit their power by only including a few things, which is why these all leave it vague. I think the legislative, but we can have a little bit more narrowing, but I would hesitate to start
We need to-
listing all the things they do.
Right, I agree with you, but when it comes to the financial stuff,
Mhm.
I think we need to add something to that, because town meeting that has that authority, the select board does not, so we want to make sure that everybody's clear on that.
Can I ask, is it the case that the legislative and the executive are intended to be co-equal? Or is it in fact the case that the legislative is intended to have more power and the executive is executing and managing on behalf in some ways of the, at least the voters and maybe indirectly through the bodies, right? So there's sort of a basic question there. I interpret often when I see old Massachusetts stuff that the town meeting is meant to really be the seat of the power, and the select board becomes certainly elected, so it almost it rises close, but it never quite equals it in some way. But I don't know. We don't have, it's not a third branch, it's not all that. But do you have any information on that part?
It's absolutely a philosophical issue. I would say that there's a history over time. Things have changed over time, but in the past, the select board really was who was managing the town, right? They didn't have this paid professional staff like a town manager or a town administrator. They were doing everything. So, I think that they have different roles. I would see them as having checks and balances on each other.
Yeah.
And so that neither one is, neither one can
Control everything.
control the other.
I see the distinction is they're separate.
Right.
And then you have to dig into what they do with their separate powers.
Yeah, and I guess in the language that you had in the beginning here, and what we see, I think, in the Dedham example, I'm not as clear on what exactly which powers are vested in which body, because the language sort of it almost reads clear enough. I mean, if you look closely, you can parse it out. But I had a hard time exactly saying, oh, okay, the town meeting body is getting these powers, and the executive body is getting these powers.
Right. And I would say in this introduction section, it's not meant to enumerate all of the powers of each. It's meant to kind of declare this is a representative town meeting form of government with a representative town meeting, an executive branch, and then mention, and we'll talk about this, what your recommendations are, but then include, is this a town administrator or a town manager? Administering this type of form of government. So it's laying out the general form of government as opposed to delineating each of the duties. But
Yeah, I don't mean duties. I definitely mean powers. That's why I said
Powers.
division of
Yeah.
powers. And
Right.
I'm focusing on the powers that I see listed are fiscal, prudential, municipal,
mhm,
and legislative. Now, I presume, given considering we've seen the other language, that those four terms are enough to encompass all of the powers that these bodies require. I'm not saying we want to list them all out either. I'm just my issue was more with the wording that I saw on the example was that
Mhm.
it wasn't clear to me just by reading it
Right.
which was for which body. It sounded like they were all for both bodies. And that's where I was like, oh, that's not.
well, the first one, right, and that was because I was understanding your concerns,
Yeah.
and so I, in the second version, I kind of chose the first one on this list, because it was a little bit more of a
Yeah.
soft sell. When you see Article 2, it really delineates what the select board's powers are, what the town manager's powers are, in a way that's very much more specific than the legislative branch
Right.
has.
I do think that we should,
traditionally.
as you had suggested, kind of take this Winchester and with kind of wording, but changing it in a way that it's clear that the legislative branch, the representative town meeting
Mhm.
has the fiscal responsibility, like they're the ones, town meeting is the one where the money is appropriated. I mean, there are other things that they do, but this is the fiscal part is really resident with town meeting. The management, the spending of it is the executive branch. So we need to be very clear as to who has, to Russ's point, who has the authority to do which.
It is the key word, appropriating. And is
Yeah,
that a word
I
that
think we can
belongs in
include
there or not? Because that's what we're trying to distinguish, that
Right.
town meeting appropriates money.
Right.
And raises, I don't know if that's the right legal term, whatever. Whereas I do agree that the management of all of these things feels like, okay, that makes sense within the executive.
right.
Where I, but the question is, you have autonomous boards, school committee, board of health, planning board. They've been given money. I don't think the spending control should rest with the select board. So reading the language
So,
then
and
becomes unclear.
Yep.
That's
So
why
one
the
of the
elect-
things I noted, I tried to note below each is to kind of show you that everyone who uses this language has the same situation where you have, you have a school committee, you have housing authority, you have all these other boards that have the authority to spend money. They're not necessarily included in this language because their powers are kind of delineated, especially the elected boards' powers are delineated. And the powers, for example, Conservation Commission has a ton of powers that is controlled by state law. So that's not necessarily in this language. That does not mean that they're given, short shrift in this. So, which is why I just added that sentence, notwithstanding language, because I understood your discomfort with that. I added this language. Now, let me say, once this is completed, you're going to review it by your town council, and your town council may say, we can't have that in there, right?
Well, that's,
So
we'll
that's
worry about
down
that
the
when we
road.
we'll get
Right
there.
now, what I want to do is kind of get your intent into the language, to the best, but also give you my experience with what some others have done. So, we can have something like the Winchester, add something like including the appropriation, power to appropriate, et cetera. And then if it's okay with you, include the language, notwithstanding this section, some executive branch functions may be exercised by elected and appointed boards and committees pursuant to Article 4 of this chapter, whatever.
And Article 4 references
Well, Article 4 will reference other elected
boards.
boards.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
So
Yeah,
with
and
apologies
say,
to Stephen Colbert, we're working on the first draft.
pardon me?
With apologies to Stephen Colbert, we're working on the first draft.
Right.
Which is one of his skits, but okay.
Okay. I don't stay up that late.
I don't either, I recorded.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're all, Patrick, is there something you want to add?
Yeah, I try to stay out of this part of the session. I just want to provide context for the committee a little bit for some reasons why you may have fiscal and prudential in there with the executive branch based on things I've seen. So when you talk about, there's a difference between, I think, legislative powers and fiscal and prudential responsibilities of what a traditional management sort of duty might be. And I think that there are a couple of things to consider. To your points, Mr. Kelly, about a town meeting appropriation and maybe someone not spending it. Because town meeting doesn't necessarily have the fiduciary responsibility that a management arm might have. When there are audited statements, they're audited against the fiduciary responsibility of the executive branch. And so I have seen, and I think it's worth having this context in there, where town meetings have approved something, approved a measure that would otherwise be illegal to spend. And so town meeting can't do certain things like negotiate contracts.
Right.
Town meeting can't do certain things like stipulate what vendor is going to be. And that could pass as an article, right? So if it wasn't ruled out of order. So I have seen town meeting approve something where and say, we want this money spent on X, and that being deemed illegal and against the sort of fiduciary responsibility of the executive branch, that money not spent. And so I think that context is helpful for what was the discussion about the checks and balances there. These things don't happen very often. I think I'm just trying to give up sort of there's a lot of the theoretical parts that go into the charter here, but then the practical of sort of the administration of government is that when the word fiscal might be some hang up related to it, but I don't think that there's a disagreement that town meeting has that legislative authority to
The
appropriate.
example that came to mind goes back probably 20-something years. Town meeting approved money to clean and clear streams because it was causing flooding problems. And the conservation administrator or whatever his name was refused to allow it to be done.
Right, and I think that would argue almost why the executive branch should have that authority to direct that, you know, so I think that that's even a call for, that's a management.
Right, that's like directing the distribution of the funds is in the executive branch. The allocation of the funds or the authorization of the fund is in the legislative branch. So I think we're all saying the same thing right now. So why don't we give that to Pat? She can reflect it in the next iteration and we can move on to the next item. Unless anybody has any difficulty with that. Okay,
She,
Okay.
she knows what the discomfort level is, and you're gonna try to wordsmith it.
Yeah, and, you know, as we said, we'll have several points along the way where you can, you know,
Yeah.
revisit and look at it and at some point we'll come up with something that, you know, that.
but I think we can make this clear. And I think that's one of the things that this kind of project we want to do is that if we're going to do a charter, let's make sure it's not so hung up in legalese and stuff that nobody understands what they're reading.
Right.
So we want to make sure it's really clear and understandable.
So we had gone through and there wasn't, the rest of the charter, we had talked about it and there wasn't a lot of discussion until we got to 2.4, which was D.
Oh, actually, I have a question on to the composition.
Sure.
We were talking about, it said the committee's interest in growing the membership without undergoing a charter change process should additional. So
Where are
I
you
look-
reading from?
this is 2.2-1.
What different stuff do you got then?
Composition.
2-1
2-1, not-
composition.
Oh, two. Oh, no, okay, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
2.
with you.
Okay.
Just,
So-
can I just say for the numbers, for each article, if it's Article 2, Section 2, so that you don't have to, the section number will reflect what article it's in.
Yep.
So that you don't have to know, you can, just from looking at it, you know what article it is, you don't have to find the heading.
So in looking at the other examples for towns that we had, a lot of them they actually had the number of town meeting
Right.
members documented here. But some of them also said every 10 years, there's a redistricting commission that meets under the registrar of voters who will determine whether it's time to add more precincts or not.
Yeah, and that's the next section, yeah.
Okay. So it seems to me, I don't know why we wouldn't want to just reflect what we have. Because if we're gonna,
Because then we'd have to go back and change it.
if we add more precincts every 10 years,
So
so,
the thought was if we say that's 18 per precinct.
Yeah.
We're done,
but we also say 7 precincts in here.
at least 7.
I said at least, well, and personally, I would have put in a number to begin with, but
I
the
think-
discussion you had was like, however much, when we grow, we want to, and add precincts, we want it to be the same number. So that was
But if-
kind of the guardrail that we
Yeah.
were working with.
If, and you can all vote me down, but it seems to me that if we're gonna suggest that every 10 years or whatever, it seems 10 years was the number that a lot of these towns use.
With the census.
The census.
Okay, so every 10 years that the town's gonna look at whether we have the right number of precincts or not, and then make a decision at that time. And I believe we're probably also gonna recommend that every 10 years that somebody take a look at the charter and make sure that's also still relevant, because I've seen that also in this language. Then I don't see that we lose anything by putting the number in.
I just think you're making it too complicated.
Avoid making work for ourselves.
If we just say it's 18 per precinct. Whatever happens with the number of precincts happens. And that's not really in the charter, that's determined by state law, that you look at it after every 10 years, every census. It's not a charter issue, it's a state law issue. And you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but
Okay, but we do say 7, at least 7.
at least 7.
At least seven. So under the language, we can have an 8th one without having to change it.
All right, okay. Voted down.
But, you know, as I said, upon review, you may, you know, if there may be changes.
But that's okay. I mean, I think
Um,
what I'd like to do is, if we're gonna make a decision, let's make it and then move on.
Yep.
So if the committee is moving in the direction of keeping it open so we can come back, then let's stay the way it's worded and Move on.
And we already talked about last time, the sec two, which essentially, more closely mirrors the state law, which is the select board, does the division. It's ultimately Mass General Law says the select board does this. There was some language in your special act that implied the registrars did it, but it's really the function of the select board, and currently as it works, the select board creates a committee that puts the registrars on it. It also puts people that are important on it, like perhaps the mapping people and to make sure that it's accurate. Yes,
So in this case, we've identified something, or let's say it's a moment, we agree is what we're gonna do, and there is a conflicting, what did you say? It's in the bylaws right now.
it's it's both in the bylaws and, well, I'm not sure if it's in the bylaws, it's in the special act,
And so,
but it's
Which means
one of
it's
the
already been
situations.
approved by the legislature, right?
Right. However, I don't have the language in front of me, but I would say it's a little wishy-washy in the special act
fair enough.
because, ordinarily the Board of Registrars wouldn't have that kind of authority. It might be just reflected the first time that precincts were divided.
Gotcha.
Were, done.
My question is a little more about procedurally. So we all like this. Let's say the language goes in the charter as is. Then the question would be, is it required that, obviously we want to note for our communications that we're, we've identified this thing and we're making it clear in the charter so that everyone knows this is what we're doing. But then secondarily, does that have to be, separated and added to our report to say, oh, by the way, we also need to change this bylaw? Or is it more the fact that if the charter gets approved, it is in fact superseding that bylaw? So it's like one and done on that.
Well,
Or sorry,
legally,
or the
if the
special.
charter's approved, it supersedes the bylaw.
Okay, that's what.
It does. I think it would be fine to point it out in your report as well.
I misspoke too. If the charter was approved, does it supersede the special act? If the special act.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
making sure.
So can I come to this wording here? Again, I'm going for clarity. Here's the select board shall divide the town 7 convenient voting precincts in accordance with, but not limited to, blah, 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 blah. But as a practical matter, the select board will convene a commission or a committee that will do that. Which
It's
is,
ultimately a vote.
Well, the committee makes in what happens right now, the committee makes a recommendation to the select board, but it's the select board's duty to make the decision.
so it says the original special act language gave the board of registrars the authority to determine precincts. And both the select board and the board of registrars approved the districts created by the reapportionment committee. We talked about that. I just think if what we're saying is the select board is going to convene a reapportionment committee, we should say that and not look, so it doesn't look like, oh, they're going to sit around the room and go, let's see, we're going to do this.
Isn't that their responsibility?
Right.
I would
What?
say we don't tell them how they're gonna make that choice, because then we don't want to define the committee that's gonna be pulling that together, because it might be different numbers, different people, depending on what you need at that time. This is what other towns do in their charter, and the charter is really only intended to be kind of the. I think the bylaws you might want to have, I think
So
that
we could have a bylaw that said,
you could have a bylaw.
here's what the reapportionment committee should be consistent of. And
Yeah.
put that in a bylaw, but not in the charter.
I wouldn't put it in the charter.
Right, okay. Me,
Committees change and things change over time. For all you know, in 5 years, the state's going to be doing it with AI. But I don't know. I would put this in here, and then if you felt strongly about how the committee should be put, it would be a recommendation to affirm it in a bylaw. But right now, I think, what's happening in practice is that the select board, has the members of the board of registrars on there. And I think you might call it board of registrars or voters, but so,
Well, I think this
that's
is
one way.
where, I don't know what the Board of Registrars thinks their charter is in what they do.
They oversee elections.
Well, I know, but relative to this, I mean.
Didn't we also,
Yes, we
in the
defined it.
last meeting, establish that the Board of Registrars has a bit of extra town definition to it as far as it's state mandated, it's controlled in other ways that have nothing to do with our town and our charter. I personally like, we're saying the select board is in charge of doing the thing.
Mhm.
How they do it, that's their business. They obviously have to comply with the state law. And part of the Board of Registrars, I believe, I'm not remembering, is the Board of Registrars and its function defined in state law or by?
Yes,
So in some sense, in order for the select board to fulfill their duty, they'll need to comply with the state law. And that will mean they will need to comply with a Board of Registrars being somehow involved. Right? Like, we're not spelling out all that detail, but
under the state law, the select board is responsible for making this decision.
okay.
And in Burlington, they incorporate the registrars in it. But to be honest, it's mostly going to be a function of staff. Staff are going to be looking at the numbers and where people live. There are very specific instructions about how you can divide, how you can divide a precinct. And, it has to be in the middle of the street. It has to be-
Dictated, there's gotta be,
it's-
they
it's-
have to be balanced,
it's
equal,
How is
clearly
that?
definable borders.
And
How
that's
is
something
those rules? How are those rules dictated?
that's in Mass General Law.
Okay, so again, there's a lot of things that now I can be like, great, I don't really care how that happens because we're not defining it and it's going to happen, which is all in Mass General Law.
And it all has to be approved by the
Right.
state, so.
And even currently, you said, we've said that the select board currently does it in such a way, but in the end, that's because the select board is doing exactly what we have written here, which is they will come up with the answer of what the apportionment is.
What the select board's doing now is they're using another committee
And they can do that.
and they can. do
They could
that.
also, draw a squiggly line on the board. It would be illegal, but they could do that. As far as we're not dictating how they go about doing it. That's what Massachusetts state law is doing. So maybe, and obviously you have the line in that I think is critical, which is
In
in
accordance with.
accordance with, but not limited to, blah, 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 of the state law. That I think is the key, which I presume is where the outlining of how the precincts are going to be drawn up.
I have a question about, now if I missed it last meeting, correct me. Limited to 18 town meeting members per precinct, is that state law?
Nope,
No.
nope.
That's our decision.
We had a discussion at one of the meetings where we talked about all the different numbers.
Because with the towns that you use as examples, they have about our population, but they have many more town meeting members.
Right, I think when we talked about it, it was like the numbers seemed to work. We have enough people to run for town meeting, but we don't have an overabundance of them. So it feels like that's the right number of, so that's how we came at just leaving it the way it is. Because it seems to work.
When we went from 6 to 7, the question rose, should we reduce it to 12
Really?
or have it leave it at 18? And the decision was to leave it at 18 per precinct.
But again, we're much lower than other towns, so why can't we increase it?
Well, where do we want them?
What
Why
do you
we-
want-
it's
what do you
less
want in your
efficient.
seats?
There are some precincts where there aren't enough people to run.
Like our
And there are
All
some
right,
precincts
I
where
just want to
some
take off.
too.
But I think we've already gone
I
through
know
that one.
Thank you.
So I think we're gonna,
In the spirit of being able to bring up things, even if we've reached some conclusion, I would say, if you have some reasons, maybe bring them to the next meeting and say, here's some
Sure.
ideas of
Okay,
what might be worth looking at.
thank you.
Okay. We had, I just want to see what we've already been. We had already talked about town meeting membership eligibility, any registered voter, someone who leaves in the middle. If they move to another precinct, they can finish out their term, finish out the year until the next election. And they can then run in the new place that we're living. Let's see. We talked a little bit about nomination of town meeting member candidates.
We have here filed with the Board of Registrars. We, as a practical matter, do it with the town clerk. Now,
The language, it's interesting because I included the language from, and I did talk to the town clerk, but I included the language from the special act. However, I would say that it's interesting because your language has it filed with the Board of Registrars first. It's really going to go to the clerk.
The clerk is the chair of the board of
The
registrars.
clerk's the chair. It's your
She's wearing two hats
you know,
at that point.
thing.
Well, I mean, this is one of those things
Mm-hmm.
where we're supposed to be communicating this in a direct way, right? If it goes to the town clerk, send it to the town clerk. Because, I don't know, it just
The town
feels,
clerk is also the chair of the board of registrars.
And because Mass
it's
General
two
Law
titles.
requires that nomination papers be filed with the Board of Registrars, it's one of their one of their primary responsibilities is making sure that signatures, when you
Okay.
need a signature of a voter, that person is a voter and that's their signature. So it's follows along the requirement of Mass General Law. And as a practical matter, it's sent to the clerk, which is, as you mentioned, like sending it to the Board of Registrars. So,
Is it state law that the clerk be the chair of the Board of Registrars?
I don't feel, I mean, maybe Patrick can answer me. They're not generally the chair. Usually what they are they're on the board as
I
an,
don't think she's so sure.
they're ex officio members. They're
She's not the
members
chair.
because
You sent
they're
me
the
the name
clerk,
of the chair.
but they're not generally the chair, but I don't
Yeah,
know
she's
how it
not the
works.
chair.
Okay.
That's correct.
Because you sent me
It's
the
a-
name of the chair and
I
it's
sent
not,
you a name on the registrar. I don't know. if
Yeah.
she's the chair.
Yeah, they're the ex officio member. They really facilitate everything the Board of Registrars does. And it makes sense in this case to be the Board of Registrars. Really, because, that is as Jack said, that's the body within the clerk's office in this present time that oversees elections. So, the town clerk will always be on that board. And usually it's a 4-member board. And that's how it's done in every community.
Is that, the fact that the clerk is on the Board of Registrars, is that a thing that is elucidated, enumerated somewhere? Or is that a happy coincidence?
No, that's the law. That's Mass Gen. That's, yeah.
They are a member ex officio and I'm not sure whether I'd have to look at Mass General Law but yes, they absolutely have a role on the board. I don't know how it's worded but they have a role. They also have a role in their function as town clerk. Their duties are laid out under state law and to be in charge of elections is among their duties. So it requires them to essentially be the staff person for the board.
It is codified in Mass General Law.
Okay, so we never have to worry about that not being the case. essentially.
And it's really necessary. I mean, the clerk is the one who's going to be trained in the election and, the people who are appointed to the board are the people who are, making sure that you have a town resident voice in this process.
Maybe, well, to help clarify the language a little bit, we could say something like, and again, I don't know legal language, so I'm just winging it here. It's got to go to the Board of Registrars via the town clerk or through somehow indicating, hey, this is the simple way to get it to the registrar. Like if someone took their information and brought it to the Board of Registrars through some other means that wasn't the town clerk, right? Is that acceptable to us?
Yeah.
Right, that's the question.
I would say
Trying to
that,
get clarity, then maybe that's what we mentioned them, hey. do this
That's the only point I'm making is that it's not obvious to, the average non-sophisticated in government practices person in Burlington, that the town clerk is the same as the Board of Registrars. So I personally, when we have things like this, I'd like to call out where we can, the Board of Registrars through the town clerk or something like that, so that
Maybe importantly saying through the town clerk, who is acting as a member of the board of registrars or something. Oh, you said that.
Yeah.
Forget.
So the only,
I just think it makes it clearer.
I'm gonna make that note.
Yep.
Does that mean
I
you're gonna
guess-
do it, or is that just?
No, I'm gonna make that note and then look into it a little more because part of me is a little bit concerned that, if the state law doesn't require
Yeah.
it going to through the clerk,
Yep.
that is going to be somehow not in line with state law. So I'm gonna make a note to look into it.
But there are all sorts of legal filings, whether it be the Board of Appeal, planning board, whatever. Everything has to be filed with the town clerk, who then distributes them. So as the record keeper, but everything goes to the town clerk's office initially.
And where we can, we should be clear about what's what, right? Okay,
Absolutely. Although, I think there are going to be a lot of things about this process that aren't going to be in the charter, but, and that's why the clerk keeps the website and says, here's where you get your nomination papers. Here's the day that they're due. Here's where you sent them. I think there's a responsibility, and the clerk does take that seriously to make sure that they're also distributing that information. But
Okay.
I made a note and I'm gonna look into it and make sure that that's
Okay.
something that we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. We had talked about this last time, a little bit about the nomination. No nomination paper shall be valid if it doesn't attach or contain the candidate's written acceptance. You can't collect nomination papers for somebody who does not want to be a town meeting member. We had talked about the placement of names of all candidates, town meeting members on the ballot for the initial election shall be established from a public drawing of lots by the town clerk. We talked about moving this section to the election section. If we do that, I think what we would say is the placement of the names of all candidates on the ballot. And then we take out the word initial, because I think that was a confusing word for the election shall be established by a public drawing of lots by the town clerk. And that's the language that we're going to put into the election section of the charter. So we talked about the incumbents, town meeting representatives having the right to give written notice in lieu of the other, if they have attended at least 50% of, and that you had decided not to change that. And what happens if if they're not, in a town meeting is a candidate and has been in attendance, they get the words candidate for reelection.
Is there a distinction between ordinary years when we elect town meeting members and when we redistrict? Because that's
Do you
why the
want
word
there to
initial
be?
was in there for the
Right.
original chart.
Do you want there to be? I think in general, there is not,
Okay.
for this particular matter. Except,
I do figure if ever we were to make an 8th precinct,
Mhm.
the incumbent town meeting members, let's say someone from precinct 7 goes to precinct 8, they'd be listed as an incumbent in the new precinct. Makes sense.
When we make new precincts, don't we make everybody rerun?
We do.
Yeah.
So
we need
are people listed as incumbent when we do that? Or is it a blank slate?
Which it should be. I mean, that's how they did it in a New York House election one time.
Well, according to this, that's how we would have done it, right? If this was
Right.
staying the same, where it says like initial election.
that's according to this is what you did after you redistricted.
If they were in 8, they're not an incumbent in 8.
Right, right.
They were an incumbent in 7, but they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same address.
So-
I think they should be listed as incumbents. I feel like that's
I don't
fair.
know. I don't think there's any right or
But
wrong
clearly
answer
you
there.
have new people voting for them. It didn't vote for them.
so they weren't incumbents in that precinct,
Yeah.
However, you may want to signal to the new people who don't know them that
running
this
for
person
reelection.
then
Yeah.
they have the experience.
So let's put it this way. If we don't feel that there's a reason not to allow it to happen, we want to keep the document
Yes, it's
simple.
true. Yeah, there's no reason to
right?
not.
So if we feel like there's a reason we don't want that to happen, then we should work, account for that. But if we
fair.
don't feel that way, then keep it simpler.
People as incumbent then. What you're saying, unless there's a reason not to.
Yes. Does anyone feel strongly that they would like to see?
Now, if we had an extra precinct, that means there's 18 more people who have to volunteer to be town meeting members.
Yeah.
And usually it's because of a growth of population that you'd require.
Yeah.
So our population has grown because of apartments, and we get very few people from apartments.
I don't know how many we get that register to vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
That would
minor
be-
Yep.
question. Section E,
Mhm.
so the line above says, shall have the following rights, and then it goes E, and then it goes to Roman numeral 2. Was that meant to be Roman numeral 1 where the E is?
Okay, yeah, that should probably, we had taken one out, so then it got a little confusing. So C, D, that should probably be,
Because it sounds like the following rights, and the following rights are the one labeled E, which would be 1, and the one number 2.
You're
I'm
right.
gonna make a note to fix it.
Sorry.
No, I
Page 4.
appreciate the input.
Section, yep, page 4. Right under the red, the D section. Says incumbent town meetings representative shall have the following rights, and then the next section is labeled as E, but I think
Yeah,
it's supposed to
it
be
should be
Roman
1
numeral
and 2.
Or little I.
I think that happened when we took out D and then I
No sweat.
fixed that. Thank you. Okay, section 2.5 elections and term. This talks about, this is included from the prior language, of your special act. In the first townwide election after any precincts are revised, the voters shall elect 18 town meeting members to represent the precinct. And this kind of shows how they will roll in. If you have, what happens is you want to have staggered terms.
Mhm.
So this next section 2.5 talks about if you have to add a precinct and you have a complete revoting, how do you decide who gets the term? The people with the most vote get 3 years, 2 years, and then 1 year. And then afterwards, at every annual election, they're elected for a term. And in the event of a tie, they call all the representative town meeting members from the precinct to vote on, determine who receives the tie vote, vote on the tie vote. 2.6, representative town meeting members serve without compensation. 2.7, this is what you have currently. I just want to hear from you if this is working for you. Your current language says a town meeting member shall not be eligible to hold any other elected position in town. They may be employed by the town. And C, they may serve in these appointed committees. Member of any committee appointed by the moderator, advisory committee appointed for special temporary purpose by the select board, school committee, or another board, officer of elections, which is essentially your poll workers, and member of the political party's town committee. They may not serve in more than one appointed position in addition to serving in positions listed in 1 through 5. 1 through 5 is no longer true. So A through G inclusive.
Oh, there are 1 through 5s in the
Oh, wait.
inside.
Oh, yeah, 1 to 5. Okay. I got it. So has that been a problem with town meeting people holding other offices? They may serve in, being a town meeting member and serving as one member of these committees. Has that been a problem?
I wouldn't want you to be a town meeting member and a member of the select board.
Right.
I wouldn't want you to be a town meeting member and the moderator.
And so no other elected position is very clear. But is it a
Oh, you're
problem
talking
with the number of appointed positions in C? I mean, has that come up?
I know there are some town meeting members who are on multiple committees appointed.
There are 2 town meeting members are on the Conservation Commission.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is it,
But are they on other commission, 2 committees?
I'm a town meeting member who's on 2 different committees.
This is the
But
language
the
you have. I
ones are
don't,
appointed by the
Well,
moderator.
it's appointed by me.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah,
that's
there's no limit.
okay.
Wait, a minute, hold on,
I
let me
feel like
make
that
sure I
language
understand
needs to be
this.
More clear
The
than,
town meeting member may serve
Oh.
in all of the following positions: member of any
No,
committee
that's very
appointed by the
clear.
moderator,
agreed.
member of advisory committee, blah, blah, blah. Town meeting members shall not serve in more than one appointed position in addition to serving in
Serving.
positions listed in A through C.
so what this is saying
that what
is,
that's saying?
if you're a town meeting member, you can have one appointed position of any kind. And you can have what happens in C, right? Which is the special ad hoc or town moderator committee.
So, well, where does it
So
say
you can-
town moderator committees? It doesn't
That's,
say that.
I'm talking about C,
It's mentioned in C subsection
C
one.
subsection 1. So it's a little, it's confusing language, but it's the language from your special
Can we
act.
clean it up?
We absolutely can, but I want to understand whether you think this is
I'm
reasonable.
I didn't know if you were, you're gonna be, okay. I was suspecting that, maybe that language is in there to prevent a particular member from having too much influence on too many places.
Right.
So that's my guess as to what the intent was. I have no idea, I wasn't there, but that feels like that's what this is attempting to do. And that seems wise, you know, I don't know that you would want someone who's a strong person on 5 or 6 places, you know, encouraging.
Can I jump
things
in?
to-
Can you guys
feeling like- Yes?
Hi.
Lovely.
The way I'm reading this, it looks like that somebody can be in town meeting and also be on 5 different committees or 5 different
That's how I read it.
boards.
That's how I read it.
So I don't feel
read
like
the
that's
same.
very restrictive. I mean, I agree with what Russell said. I also don't know if there's any way to clean up that language necessarily because we are outlining a whole bunch of different things in one paragraph, but it feels
That's exactly what
like
it says, because it says you can serve in all of the following positions,
Right, +1.
plus one.
So you can serve in every committee that the moderator appoints.
No, I read this
It's
as one by the moderator, one by
Yeah.
the select board.
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
Well, if you read the words here, I agree with you, Jess. That's how.
So that's why they can be like, okay,
They serve in
moderator,
any or all.
correct, but not like every single
A
one
member
of,
of any committee appointed by the moderator,
Not just one committee,
any committee.
I think that the moderator should appoint.
Well, it also says can't serve in any more than one appointed position in addition to serving A through C. You're right.
Yeah, D covers those that aren't in C. This may be, you
What
have a
exists-
lot of,
what exists outside of C?
in your town, not as many because you have a lot of elected positions that are not appointed, but things like conservation commission, conservation commission,
Board of Appeals.
board of appeals, the
The
appointed
Council on Aging.
council
But
on
those are appointed by,
select board.
yeah, so they fall under C.
I was a town
Yeah,
meeting, wait a minute, I just want you, I don't know when this was written and help me understand.
Appointed,
I
For a
was,
special temporary purpose, not the standing ones.
I was a town meeting member and I was also on the Council on Aging. And the town administrator at that time came and told 2 of us who were on the Council on Aging, we were both town meeting members and on the council, that we couldn't serve both positions.
And we changed it subsequently. It's been
Correct.
changed.
So the other person stayed on the council and I stayed the town meeting member, right? So is this the wording that would then be appropriate?
Yes, D was added.
Well, definitely it's clear that this section is not clear.
Yes.
So I
And-
guess
and
the question is, do we know how to unravel the intent? Because I guess that the intent, I have no idea if that was the intent.
What do the other
If it is,
towns
it's failing.
do? I mean, it seems to me that this says basically you can be on 5 committees.
Right.
That to me is,
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think,
Well-
I think see subsection 2 is an important one to allow people who are in other positions, because I feel like something that's a temporary or special purpose, you need large majority of people, like this committee, you need a good representation of people who understand what's going on currently in town government. So I think for that one, you kind of have to allow for some makeup of people who serve some form of other
Yeah.
role, whether that be appointed or elected. Like, that one I think is unique, but the others, how they coexist is
Well,
interesting.
officer election, so serve like people working the polls, right?
Right, and,
So
and
that's
Yeah, that
another
has to be
one that could,
allowable, yeah.
that could be
Yeah.
with everything, so that works. Member of the political party's town committee, that could work too,
Sure.
because
It
it
might
has
just
nothing to
be
do.
the first subsection.
So the one that, member of any committee appointed by the moderator.
I would just add an S to the committee there, so a member of any committees appointed by the moderator, that will take the ambiguity away.
Well,
The show
I guess-
that he can appoint somebody to more than one town meeting committee.
you can either add any one committee, you know,
Oh.
a member of any one committee, if you want to limit it. However, before I say you should do that,
Oh, yeah.
I guess I'm interested in understanding if you'll have enough members for your committee. If we do that, or if it's gonna affect, you know, somebody who might be on, you know, the bylaw committee and some of that, another.
Right, I mean, I guess that. Do we have any evidence that there was an intent to limit influence by members? When whatever this was put together, we have clearly an evidence of how D got here. Because it was trying to, I guess, you know, allow a town meeting member to serve in more than one committee. So that was sort of broadening the ability for a person to have influence.
I think it's not only the influence issue, but also the fact that you get people joining committees and they don't go to meetings and they don't
Yeah,
do stuff,
overextended.
right? So they overextend, and then you have committees that are not affected. So part of it is you want people to commit to a committee who will actually do the work, right? So,
Yeah. That's what you do. You find people who will say they're gonna do the job.
right. But there may be, you know, if people want to sign up for 5 committees or 4 committees or 3 committees, whatever, just given the nature of a lot of these committees, you can't really do that.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at what these are. Okay, there's the ones appointed by the moderator.
That's the one I'm talking about.
You think they're gonna put one person on 5 different committees?
Well,
Oh, I
it
think
doesn't matter
somebody
what
might-
you would do. What matters is what someone could possibly do. in the
What would
position of
people
moderator.
want to do? You know, would somebody volunteer to be on 3 committees, for example? I know, you know, there are a couple people who've been on multiple committees
Yeah.
and,
You're up.
and it's been a problem because they don't have the capacity to, you know, they have lives outside this stuff, so that it's
I mean, I would argue, same reason I would argue in the theoretical of a moderator. In some ways, that's possible for a committeeman. There may be a person who can very capably serve on 5 committees. And they have nothing better to do with their life, but just go to town on town.
Volunteering is the greatest thing. you can
Yeah, I think the question, again, the question I thought of, and again, maybe this has nothing to do with it, is more, are we trying to structure something so that such an individual doesn't have undue influence
Yeah.
over the powers of the town? That's, again, maybe, you know, I don't know how many town meeting members serve on the moderator committees.
100 and no, almost half. There's like 70 positions out of 126 people.
Right, so you're almost by necessity going to need, some people are gonna be on multiple committees.
Yeah.
Just to get the job done.
They got 13 on the rules committee.
Never.
And barring any input, we don't hear that
we're
like,
gonna cut that one down though.
15 slots, not 15 minutes.
But I'd like to qualify that. I was chair of the rules committee and we would take attendance. And I believe you have to reappoint them every year, their
Yeah.
one-year terms. So that, you know, sometimes people were reappointed, but they never really came to committees. You know, it's sort of like a
And they didn't
report
know they
card,
were
an
reappointed.
attendance, huh?
And they didn't know they were reappointed.
They get
Well,
letters.
no, I won't
get
say that, but what I'm saying is there's no report card given by the chair to the
There we go.
moderator about the people that sat on that committee, and did they contribute? Did they participate? Did they attend?
So the question I think we're talking about is, do we want to limit the number of people appointed by the town moderator in terms of committees, right? Pat threw out one. That obviously is not going to work.
What was your argument?
She
It
just
wasn't
threw out
an
one.
idea. I just
Threw it
suggested
out
we try to
for,
limit it,
for,
for example.
for an example. Right now, it's just any committee. We could leave it the way it is, and then people could be on multiple committees as needed. And then you just are going to have to count on the fact that the work is distributed evenly.
I would suggest that if this is an issue or a problem, you deal with it as a bylaw. Remember, this is just a big general position here.
Yeah, except for
Right.
if you look at a lot of these other, if you read through those other charters for other towns, it's not quite so
Well,
big in general. Some of them are, they're very, I mean, they're written in a way that lays out how things work. So, so people don't have to go, oh, wait a minute, I got the charter here. Oh, that's a bylaw. So no, how do I know it's a bylaw, right? I mean, it's, so part of what we're trying to do is simplify. Isn't that part of what our job is, to make things understandable for people who aren't geeks in government? And
It's true, but it might conflict. I mean, there's a world where there's one thing we're trying to do is make a charter that is long lasting and doesn't require going to the state assembly every 3 years to alter it. So that's sort of the impetus to move some language
oh, yeah,
not in the charter so that we have control over it easier.
Yeah.
There's other things where, I agree. It would be nice if a citizen comes up and they read the charter and like, oh, it makes sense. They get the gist of what's going on. But obviously it's never going to contain every detail. So
Right.
there is still going to be the need to go deeper. I
Can I
look at
jump in
this and I
once more?
think also maybe the principle of we only want to limit things when there's a reason to limit them. So this feels like it's a limit. I'm still not entirely certain how exactly it's limiting because it feels so broad and strange. But somebody felt strong enough to put this in the language in the first place. And so maybe understanding what is the limit they're trying to put on, because, oh, why doesn't it just say there's no language concern about any committee you want, whenever you want? There's obviously something here to limit it. So the question is why?
Well, coming at it from a different angle, looking at 2 and 3, it's not that someone volunteers to be on subcommittee, but the selectmen and the school committee keep appointing the same people to all their committees. So you come at it from 2 different
I
ways.
see, from that direction.
Can I add something as well?
Yeah, can you
Yeah,
yell?
can you hear me? Sorry, what?
Nikki, you have the con.
Okay, great. So I wanted to say, I agree with Russ and disagree with Russ. I think that the question that we do want to come back to is there a reason to limit people? And I don't know that I view this as a limit necessarily, as much as I view it as an answer to a question. Like people were saying, well, I'm on town meeting. Is it okay for me to be on this, that, and the other thing? Can I be a member of my town's political party committee? Then the answer is right there, and they don't have to wonder or not, try that because they don't know if they can. And then the second thing I would say is, if we're trying to limit people because we are worried about their capacity, I think let grown-ups be grown-ups and figure that out if an issue does arise. I don't think that the charter is a place to manage that.
I think I'm coming around to leaving it. Because
Just had the word ask the committees. So it's just one committee. But I think that moderator can appoint first of many committees. So I think S clarifies that.
They're overburdened, they can be unburdened.
that's a management issue, not a
Yeah.
software issue.
Right.
Yeah.
The moderator can not
And
appoint
the
too.
town
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The terms, you know,
Don't show up, get out.
That's in a different section.
Yeah,
No, no, I know that.
but, yeah,
Okay.
no, that's great. Okay, So leave it as is, maybe see if there's any way to clear up the language.
If we add the S after section one, member of any committees appointed by the moderator, are we also adding an S to member of any advisory committees appointed for blah, blah, blah?
It could be more than one.
Right, there could be many advisory committees appointed for a special temporary purpose.
Well, this is saying you can only be on one.
But I feel like
No,
it
that's-
already says that you can be on as many as you want. Maybe they want you on the open space committee and this, you
Mhm.
know, and another committee. But I think it's already saying that, but I think the intention of S was to make it more clear. So if you want to make it more clear for both, that's fine.
All right, then the D is the one that, again, as I read it, I still don't get it. It's saying a town meeting member shall not serve in more than one appointed position. In addition to all the positions in 1 through 4 inclusive. So,
Which is why I read C as you can only be in one of the.
right. So what, for example,
Why does D exist?
That was added relatively recently to allow people who serve on Conservation Commission to be town meeting members. Or people on the Board of Appeals to also be town meeting.
but
wouldn't
that
that
says they
already
shall
be-
not serve.
No, because those are not ad hoc committees. Those
So
are
they're not ad hoc committees.
standing, those are full-time committees.
But then why does it say that a town meeting member shall not serve in more than one?
I mean, it could say a town meeting member, yeah, because
You
they
don't
can
need that
only
line.
have
If
one.
you're
So it's serving more than
You
one
do need-
appointed
Permanent.
permanent position. You can't be on the Conservation Commission and the Board of Appeals.
You could say a town meeting member,
Okay.
like you could, I would mirror the language of C and say a town meeting member may serve in one appointed position in addition to those listed in C. Would that make more sense?
I think it might.
Yeah.
Instead of saying shall not
Yeah.
serve
Yeah.
Yeah,
May
whenever you
serve
can make it
in
positive, I
one-
think it makes it better.
appointed position in addition to.
That works.
I think that literally does it.
Okay,
Great, we got it.
next.
All right, 2A, town meeting member vacancies, it's, the office is vacant upon death, resignation, or removal from office in any manner authorized by law. Vacancy is filled for the remainder of the unexpired term, if any, at the next regular town election, if, and for the remainder. And if there's no election within 60 days, the moderator directs the town clerk to post notice and allows, essentially allows the precinct members to fill the position until the next election. This doesn't make any change in what you're currently doing, and it's fairly.
Is the
typical.
newspaper a state law?
Go ahead.
Is the newspaper thing a state law?
We don't have one.
I know, and that's one of the things
So
that we
can
mentioned.
not require it? I feel like requiring it to go in a newspaper when we don't have a newspaper.
Well, we have newspapers, but we just don't have a Burlington hard copy. Those,
Right.
There was a Burlington edition of the Woburn Daily Times.
yeah.
There are some,
6 people.
yeah,
It's
there,
Buzz.
That's not a hard copy.
there are some, there are some statutes that require newspapers still, and they haven't changed them. I don't believe, I mean, because you're creating this, I don't believe you have to use newspaper
I
for
think if
this.
we have the flexibility not to use newspaper, but to require, bulletin board, town's website,
I
and
would
maybe
say,
in the
and then
local
in
electronic news.
I would
A
say
digital job. board.
in bulletin board, on the
Or a job board.
website, and maybe in any other, area regularly used, by the.
Right, I would err to not specify what it is, but go for what the intent is. It's for a town-wide,
Electronic,
I don't even.
I don't even know, we could
Holographic
say,
future,
We
like,
don't-
I don't know. I wouldn't even
but-
say electronic, just.
I'll craft some language.
Okay.
But we'll take
just
out
a-
newspaper and say in the town, on the bulletin board, in the website, and in any other town-wide,
Communication.
communicate,
Vehicle.
communication, yeah,
Um,
regularly used by, by the town.
I feel like there should be language for what happens in the event of a tiebreaker. I know that, 17 members, if they all show up, it won't be equal. Yeah, right. But, is there any procedure to handle that? I'm sure it's happened at least once. Would the moderator get the tiebreaker or?
I think that I remember this happening and when I was appointed actually to town meeting. I could be completely making this up, but it sounded like that or from what I remember, the rest of the town meeting members, we were virtual at that time and they like went offline, had a conversation and revoted. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
She said,
Entirely,
They
yeah.
had a conversation and revoted.
oh, they voted?
Yeah.
Town meeting can't end till you come up with a decision.
Yeah, seriously, it's like choosing the Pope.
Yeah.
So do we, your point, Corey, is we should have something in there about that.
We should. Not sure what off the top of my head, maybe that could be a discussion for another time, but if we could maybe learn how other towns handle that.
That's the question.
Where are we? I'm sorry, I got lost.
Vacancies.
Give them more power.
I don't think, I'm trying to think of the ones I know don't have it,
Page 5.
don't have it in there, don't have it specifically what happens in this event.
Well, we could put it in there.
But yeah, so I'm just trying to, I'm trying to figure out what other towns do. I'm not sure
They keep voting until they get. a
whether
winner.
the town moderator would be the decider, should be the decider.
Town clerk runs, not me.
Right,
Maybe they let it take until the next election.
That would be very funny. Imagine
Well-
two people showing up and neither of them get in.
right, ready to
Well, they
go.
need somebody you need to kind of make a decision, right?
Yeah,
Flip a coin, I mean, you could, one with the
Yeah, I think there are,
birthday, and there's gotta be,
you can do it by lot if there's a tie,
Yeah.
kind of like you do the order of,
You're talking about the actual vote for the vacancy.
yes.
right,
My thinking is it should be left vacant until the next election, but maybe that comes somewhere else.
It's fair.
well, I mean, the point is if this
Yeah.
happens like a month into the year,
right, January
And-
usually.
and then you have an entire year where two people are willing to serve. You could leave it, you could definitely leave it vacant, then that precinct is not going to be fully
Yeah, I
represented for
don't think
almost
it's
a
right to
year.
leave it vacant.
Yeah,
I don't think
We don't
that's,
get the attendance, do they come? I mean, you're invited to, but
Well, that's a different issue. I mean,
Yeah.
but the people you have two people show up to run for a position, I think the chances are good that they're gonna show up for the meeting.
well, I look at it that you're depriving 2,500 people in that precinct from electing their duly.
No,
They will be
do it as soon as the
elected.
next election.
They do it at the next
yeah.
election, so they're not
only-
being deprived of anything.
They're only appointed until the next election.
Yeah.
We only get to serve in September and January. Then they're out.
And they don't get listed as an incumbent.
No,
I still feel the way I feel. That's just my opinion on it.
Should the town moderator do a coin flip or
Town clerk.
Town
town
clerk,
clerk rather?
or
Yeah.
by lot, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
choose your favorite.
Yep, by lot,
Yeah,
probably in
because
case
it's not
there's
so funny,
three.
it's two sides, and if you have three
If there's
candidates.
three candidates.
If you get three candidates, then they're tied.
Edge, do you land
Now,
on the
let me
edge?
think, you've got to, you can figure it out. You go through 3 iterations.
that does
There's
make
three
me
candidates
think.
and there's 9 town meeting members, they're voting. Yeah, you can have a tie.
I think if there are three candidates and one candidate gets less votes than the other two, it should go like the people who voted for the ranked choice voting, basically.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fair way to kind of do a revote in that case.
Well, if
there's-
there's a tie for a winner, if there's a two-way tie for a winner, the lot of the two with the most votes.
But if
If there's a three-way tie, then you'd include all three.
Yes, but I'm talking about the case of two people tie, like let's say two people each get 5 votes. And another 2 candidates get 4 votes, or no, 4 and 3. I would say that the people who voted for the candidates who got 4 and 3 would be allowed to revote between the two who got 5 in a ranked choice voting fashion.
So you don't want someone just elected on a plurality, you want to force them to have a majority? I think you're making it too complicated.
I suppose this is me being biased in favor of ranked choice voting everywhere, so
Well,
take
ju-
that with a grain
just-
of salt.
Just remember how this is being done. It's being done at the front of the town meeting
Mhm.
because town meeting said thou shalt do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you know. Anyway,
I feel it would be pretty quick to,
well,
I've seen it done in the town clerk's office. When was
we
it?
can't do that anymore.
No, I'm just asking, when was this change that had been,
Town meeting has decided relatively
Just
recently.
give me that-
Well, it's been,
Remember,
I mean, it's been that way ever since I've been on town.
We used-
Huh?
Amy used to have the elections in the,
clerk's
And,
office, yeah.
in the selectmen's in the meeting.
No, I've seen it do it. in
Well, she
the-
may have done it in the clerk's office too.
Well, anyhow,
But
it's
the
not
most
done that
recent
way.
ones, she had it in the big meeting room
Okay.
and had people show up.
Yeah.
Because she would fill all of them, not just for one precinct.
At one night, at one time.
At one
It's
time.
much more efficient.
And town meetings the last year said, "All right, we don't want to do it that way. Thou shalt do it in front of town meeting. At the
Seriously,
beginning
is
of
that,
town
is
meeting.
that an example of a town meeting rule
Yeah,
or is it a bylaw?
well,
It's an administrative something that somebody
it's somewhere
decided.
that got voted on by town meeting. It's probably a bylaw, because we don't really have too many rules. All the
Yeah.
rules are pretty much in bylaw.
Yeah, okay.
I don't,
This just says, yeah, to take place at the next scheduled town meeting. Now, if I can just, I know at least one other town that they have, you don't really have precinct meetings prior
No.
to your meeting.
No.
But, you know, I don't know if, you know, I think, did they change it to in front of town meeting because they didn't want to have a separate meeting? Could you just do it before?
that way it's administratively easier for the town clerk.
Right.
Everybody's there. They have to be there anyhow. You don't have to call them in.
The town clerk wanted to do it the other way.
Well, I'm not
Because it's
aware.
difficult, because you're trying to start a meeting.
Yeah.
And now you've got to do the selection of maybe 3-4 precincts that
Yeah.
you've got to deal with. And
What if it's at a meeting immediately preceding town
That's what it
meeting?
is.
Yeah,
At
That's what it
the,
is.
at the site?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Show
what
up
it is.
15 minutes early is what she said. So
Or it's like
Right.
30 minutes. You come at 6 o'clock.
so,
During the pandemic, it was done in Grandview. The big room in Grandview. There were 4 different precincts that had vacancies and it was supposed to be a closed vote, and by the time people finished, that was zooming in, it was an open vote. I was very upset by that because they've changed rules in the middle of the voting. Okay.
No. Anyhow,
So-
so if we're gonna do it this way, what we're
what's,
proposing,
what's the simplest, most
So-
effective way to do
Do it
it?
by
Let's
law.
put that in place
we
and
can,
forget what was.
we'll add that. Well, but I just wanted to let you know that the language from this section about these vacancies comes from a special act that was submitted by a home rule petition in January 2025. You just approved this language. So I feel like you may have had a lot of discussion over this already. So, you know, so maybe a good idea would be to leave the language pretty much as is with the exception of the newspaper issue. And then if we want to add something about a tiebreaker,
I think we had a tiebreaker.
Second.
Yes,
someone can make that, but,
yeah, I think that's what we're proposing.
great.
so no talks of tiebreaker, sorry, I just,
We can add the simple tiebreaker of the town clerk. If the town clerk's already meeting with people for the vote, and there's a tie, they can, you know, draw lots for the winner in the event of a tie.
I think that would be a good idea.
If you want to ask.
Yes,
if that's a
please.
concern. Okay,
Yes, please.
great. Okay. So 2.9, what is that? 2.9 talks about town moderator and appointments. This, you had already talked about,
Town meeting clerk tonight.
sorry,
The clerk, not town
Oh.
moderator.
oh, I have, my numbers are wrong. I have to renumber. We moved things around.
Two nines.
We have two nines. So, and the rest will have to be changed. I'll fix that.
Okay, so we're going to town moderator.
Okay,
I wanted to ask a question about town moderator. We talked about having, saying that it's a 3-year term. Why don't we just say it in here?
sure.
Dude.
We talked, I'm going to also say it in another section because the idea is I wanted to have one section where you could see them all in a row. But I think it's, I went back and forth and I think we can put 3-year term right in.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
He's not in it yet.
I think that's certainly a legitimate question. So this is where we talk about the town moderator appoints the deputy moderator to serve in the case of absence. Town in the absence of disability of the moderator and any deputy moderator, the town meeting shall elect its own temporary moderator. That's
Now-
language right from.
Yeah, we don't do that, right? You always nominate somebody if you can't do something.
Yeah, but if you have the town meeting votes on it.
Yeah.
They have to.
Oh, okay, so that's what that is referred
One
to.
of the
Okay,
motions at the beginning of the meeting.
okay.
Also, wouldn't that be the deputy, which the language here says subject to a meeting approval.
Yeah.
So yeah, that explains it.
Okay,
And section B is what you have now, which is essentially the moderator shall appoint the members of a committee on ways and means and such other committees, special or standing is made time to time be established subject to section 12, which I'm gonna have to check all the numbers and make sure we're referring to the right spot. The town moderator performs any other duties as may from time to time be assigned to the moderator by bylaw rule or vote of town meeting. Next section is the clerk.
just a question on some of,
Sure.
as I was looking at some of these other, they actually list appointed boards and committees, and they list them out.
What do we want to listen to?
I thought we talked about that, and we didn't want to have it in there because but the only one that's required to be in here.
Is the Ways and Means. Right.
And all the others are set up by town bylaw.
Especially if at some point we want to clean some of them up.
Yeah, it doesn't
That's a
list
good
all of them.
question.
It just lists the ones that,
And the problem is prioritizing which ones are we gonna put in here, which are we not,
Yeah.
what is semi-permanent, what is permanent. So in general, do, but then they have to go through the process of amending the charter if they want to add or change something.
20 years ago, half those committees didn't exist.
That's right.
So,
I'm just, again, I'm just going the different towns that we are using as comparable towns. And for some reason they felt, and I'm sure they have been judicious in deciding what they're going to put in there in terms of which committees. I mean, some of them are,
Remember though, just because they put it in there doesn't mean it works well.
right, and things
So I
change
tell people all
over
the time,
time.
just because somebody has a marketing commercial doesn't mean it actually performs well.
oh, I know, but it does mean that people know that committee exists. But do they need?
But does the committee, the thing, if it doesn't, should it still exist too? I mean, that's a
Right.
question.
Well, some of these are, kind of like, the Recreation Commission and the Housing Authority and the Historical Committee and Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, Planning and Development, Board of Health. Anyhow, yes, you decided you don't want it.
It's maximum flexibility to have them in the bylaws to change, to change
Correct.
things.
And again, I always push towards like,
And that-
we're going to push people to look at bylaws,
Mhm.
right? So we're going to say, okay,
Well, that's a little far. Like you can find out what the committees are by going on the website and saying, what are your committees? Because they're right there.
right.
That said, I hear your spirit of the purpose of the charter is not to explain everything, but it should explain clearly the structure and the function. And so, yeah, I mean,
Okay, I'm good. Okay, I'm good.
The next section simply says that the town clerk or their designee is the clerk of the representative town meeting. And the clerk gives the notice, keeps the journal, and performs any other duties. This is pretty standard language. I believe this is directed to your special act.
Do they call it a journal?
I've
never heard
Most
that.
charters do call it a journal. I don't know if they still do that in practice, but
I think
it's a journal of proceedings.
and she does minutes and she both posts them on them. I've never heard the term journal. So I don't know if that's, yeah, so I'm not sure that's a word. I don't know that that accurately reflects what it is. I mean, she documents the meetings for sure, and she posts them on the website for sure, but they're more like,
I don't know if that word is the word mimics what's said in state law, so I'm gonna check on that. But that's what most charters do.
Keeper of the archives,
Yeah.
keeper of the records and once the archivist and all that type of stuff. So town clerk certainly has more duties than what.
No, this isn't about the town clerk's duties and all. This is just the town clerk's duties with
for
respect to town meeting.
meeting.
Respect to that meeting, okay.
What happens after town meeting, the town clerk gets involved in other things.
Just about the additional compensation. Is it appropriate to refer to that here? I feel like we have salaried employees of which this is part of their job. You know, to me, again, this is my corporate thing. It's like you have to be here at night. That's part of your gig. You're being paid a salary and that's part of your job. And I do have issues about, people getting stipends for stuff that should be part of their job. And, but that's me. And I just think in a charter to talk about you're giving them additional compensation for doing their job, I have difficulty with that.
Same as overtime, because we,
We don't get overtime.
well, okay, but in some of them, the clerk's office usually does a checking in the members.
But we should be telling how we're going to compensate people. There's a whole lot of compensation laws that tell you how you compensate people. And for those people, I'm sure there's union contracts that tell you how you're going to compensate them. I just don't know that I think a charter is where you put compensation language.
I would say this reflects your current language. It doesn't have to be there. It's not always in charters. I would just ask, did the town meeting ever spontaneously decide to pay more money to the clerk? I mean, if it's not something that's used.
We don't do it. Cross it out.
Okay, that's great.
Seconded.
Great. Good to know. This was wonderful. So town meeting investigations, this is your language. The town meeting can direct a duly organized committee to make investigations into operations of the town and into the conduct of any town department, office, or agency. And for this purpose, such committees may subpoena witnesses, administrative oaths, etc. People who, this is your language. I don't know if you ever have investigations where you subpoena people and deeds. I think that.
I haven't done it, but it's nice to have the threat there.
Yeah,
I didn't even know this was a possibility.
Oh, yeah,
And I wonder how many people know that this is a possibility.
I've known it for,
I know it.
Well, you guys are smart on this stuff.
It says
Well,
town department, it
we
doesn't
have
say,
used it as a threat occasionally,
but it doesn't say town employee.
compliance and some things.
Of any town department, office, or agency.
It
and
doesn't
for
say
purpose.
employee.
We can't get into the leagues.
Or boards.
Uh,
Or is that inferred in this?
it's not limiting who they can subpoena. It's just saying make investigations into the operations of a town and the conduct of the town. So do you mean employees with respect to who they ask, who they subpoena, or employees as to an employee is who the investigation is with regards to?
I think this is talking about a bigger problem. Like if an employee is doing something they shouldn't be doing, sexual harassment, I mean, name your favorite, thing that
Yeah,
people
no,
do, they
that's-
shouldn't, that's not, that's not in our, that's not
Oh,
within our,
But then it cites person in the last sentence.
any person who fails or refuses to appear to testify.
Those are for the people who we subpoena. Any person.
I-
So if there's a department that somebody
Yeah.
feels is doing things they shouldn't be, and they want to subpoena all the employees of that department. And I say, I work there, I say, I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna show up, then that's what they're talking about. I can get fined for not showing up.
It invoked when the housing authority had problems, it was at the state level. I don't remember.
Predates me.
Anyhow, it's good that we have this here. I didn't know it was there.
So I look at this and I think that the punishment isn't particularly strong. If you ask someone to show up and then they don't, and then they pay $500. If this was a serious investigation, so serious that it got the town meeting to do something about it and organize a committee and try to dig into something, then someone can just pay $500 and be like, no, I'm not coming.
You can then go to court and have a court order.
There are, as
Zoom
I
out the
understand it, aren't
activities.
there limits to how much you can fine?
There are, I don't know limits for the
Because
fine.
I remember when I was doing something for the signage thing, I wanted to fine people a whole lot of money. And they said that I couldn't, I was limited to like $200 or something. It was like ridiculous.
I think we should hold them in contempt and put them in jail. For the,
No, I have a question though.
They do it on a
How-
Friday afternoon, so they can't go to court until.
How does the town meeting direct this? Does it have to be like a vote? Is it majority? Like, how does this even get rolling into motion?
Well, it's a duly organized committee.
But it says town meeting may direct, like who? One person in town meeting?
I think
town meeting may
I would interpret that as the town meeting.
So who appoints that committee?
So operationally, I would say, I would come in and say, I think that there's some bad things happening in XYZ department. And I would say to Bill, I want you to authorize a committee. I'm making this up. To do an investigation. Is that how it works? Or do I go to town meeting and ask for a vote?
You go to town meeting.
Yeah, I would
ask them
interpret
to
it as a
vote.
town meeting.
Town meeting
vote.
may direct.
Vote majority?
You may tell me to appoint, but town meeting directs.
Okay, so that everybody has to do, again, a majority, or is it, by?
Is this a
two-thirds?
warrant? Is this you can show up and ask for it?
So if
To
we
be
could be
dealt with
clear,
at Town meeting, it's gotta be on the warrant.
And in order to have a warrant, it has to be, all these things publicly
Yep.
noticed.
Yes.
So can we, maybe we'll be a little bit more specific about operationally as well?
Or we don't need to because that's exactly what we want.
but I think what we need to do is have, I mean, if it needs to with a majority vote of town meeting or a 2/3 vote of town meeting, I think we need to say it.
It's a majority unless it says two-thirds.
Exactly.
So I know that.
It's a majority unless we state two-thirds.
It's listed somewhere in some of the things I've read somewhere. Sure.
Pat, can we just put whatever it is in this one? Please? Because if town meeting has to vote on it, then I think we should say,
But I think it's in the town
That's how
meeting
town
rules, which I
meeting-
think are in the special act.
I mean, that's how town meeting works. They vote.
Right.
right,
So
May
that's-
direct by a majority vote.
okay, thank you.
And then all the other rules when we talk about warrants, because when we talk about warrants, a certain number of town meeting members are required to.
And more.
And do we have this also in rules that only things discussed at town meeting have to be via warrant?
No,
Yes,
Oh,
It
yeah,
is.
you can't-
I have read that.
Unless it's, no, it is. Everything has to be.
Everything has to be on the warrant.
Right.
proposals from the floor.
no.
For
not anymore.
amendments to the warrants.
They're ruled out of order.
They are.
I thought there was language maybe in mass level that was talking about on warrants. I might be getting this where I'm getting it wrong, and there was specifics about how far from it was still an interpretation, but how far from the content of the article
Right.
of the warrant
Oh,
to go and all that kind of thing.
that's, how many times?
So is that in the town meetings? Is that in our bylaws?
But the warrant serves as a warning, not just town meeting, but to the entire town
Yes.
as to what's coming up in town meeting. So you can't bring up things that you haven't told the town.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about. So that's why it's gotta be on the warrant.
So a subpoena would have to be on an article.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
No surprises.
No,
subpoena would be done.
Not the subpoena.
Committee.
But to discuss investigating
Yeah.
would have to be on a warrant
Yeah.
and publicly.
And publicly, so you're like convicting them before you even get there.
Well, no, you have to have on the article that you're going to direct a duly organized committee to investigate operations, blah, blah, blah.
Right, and in your backup, you need to explain why you want to do that. So in essence,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that,
But in that argument, so can representatives who might represent the counter argument present the counter argument of why you don't want to do that, right? So I suppose in a way it is sort of like a trial, but it's not pre-convicting them. It's having the discussion of whether the town meeting is going to direct an organized committee to look into it.
Correct.
it's just, I'm surprised, that's all, that just,
It's a hammer that's out there that
we probably never use.
I've never seen it used.
It's also the case that a citizen can bring forward an article with enough
Yeah.
signatures,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a citizen could bring it to the town meeting, of course.
Yes.
but-
Citizens could, with sufficient with sufficient signatures.
So that feels also useful for like a whistleblower or somebody to bring to,
Easy enough to get one town meeting member to spot the article.
right?
Yeah.
Town meeting sessions.
Okay, sessions, we talked about that you had the language, with, you have a continuous town meeting not less than
3 times.
well, I think you said every 150 days or whatever. I just changed it to say 3 town meetings shall be held annually. Each to be conducted as an annual town meeting on dates to be determined by the select board pursuant to town bylaws. And just to be clear that there are 3 town meetings instead of saying that you have to meet continuously and can't break up for more than 150 days.
And they're considered annual because they're not special, right? Isn't that why you said that?
Exactly.
Okay.
The select board moderator or 10 or more town meeting members may call special town meetings when deemed necessary or desirable to transact legislative business as allowed by Mass General Law. Select board shall call a special town meeting and request in writing of 200 registered voters or 20% of the total number of registered voters of the town. Whatever number is less, the special town meeting must be held no later than 45 days after the select board receives the petition. I don't want to just, I know you've all had a chance to read it.
Keep going.
But then D is town meeting determines its own rules and orders of business, unless otherwise provided by law, provides keeping a journal of its proceedings, and this is where the word journal comes
Yeah.
in. It's pretty standard language to call it a journal. Journal shall be a public record, kept available, readily accessible, etc.
Do we have to use that word? Because I've never heard that in our.
I actually like it.
You do?
I do, because journal in parlance means exactly what it is here. Someone's keeping a chronological note of the things that are going on, and that's what they're doing. So it feels very old English to me.
Except on procedural matters, voting's by standing vote. But if 7 or more members shall doubt the vote by raising their hands, this is in your language. This may not be
Okay.
what you do, but this is in your language. To indicate after the vote is announced, then a call of the roll shall be taken and the vote is recorded in the journal. Moderator may direct that any vote be taken by a call of the roll.
A couple of things here is, and Bill, help on this one. It says voting shall be by standing vote, but we, in the beginning of each meeting, say, let's vote to allow people to raise hands. So there is a process that we go through that allows people not to stand, but to raise hands, which we should reflect in this because that's what we do.
No, he does that because the charter says we got to vote.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't have a charter.
Well, your special act.
Special act.
acts.
Right, but it says here, it doesn't say that you can do that here.
Doesn't say you can't.
Right, so are you, it sounds like Betsy would like to make a change so that we default to the vote being not standing, but being by raising of hands.
No, just that you need to vote. The process as it is now is that the first vote is always done by standing, and the first vote is that for the rest of the meeting, we're gonna raise our hands when we vote.
But you don't know that that's guaranteed to happen. Someone could choose not to have that be the first vote. And
Well-
every vote is by standing vote, because that's what it says right here.
Right,
Or-
but it's not, it's not.
But it's only not because in the meeting, you all, it sounds like, if I'm reading it correctly, you all decide that for the rest of this meeting, we're gonna use our hands.
Right, and ever since I've gone to town meeting, the moderator has, as the first order of business almost, said, we're gonna, take a vote to raise hands instead of standing up.
So what are you asking for?
I'm asking to have this actually reflect what we do.
So I would argue then that I would ask that it's not by standing vote, it's by a raising of hands. And that is the default. Then you
Yeah.
don't need to explain a secondary vote because it won't ever happen because you will raise by hand.
Well, that's,
Now, unless there's a reason that standing vote is like Old English parliamentary important to show a, I don't know.
Why is the phrase except on procedural matters there?
Great question. But is there a reason, do you think, standing?
why do we have standing vote?
I don't know because I'm used to standing vote. I've never,
We got so many papers on our lap, but we stand up and make a mess.
I know.
It also makes it a lot easier when you're counting.
To- To see, yeah, it's a visual, it's a
You
visual
stand up,
thing.
the seat flips up.
Yeah.
Well, there are times when we do standing counts.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
There are times.
It's the job of the moderator to decide that.
If there's nothing broken by what we're doing now and this doesn't go against it, wouldn't we just leave it?
Well,
as
doesn't
is?
it go against it? It says, except on procedural matters, voting shall be by standing vote.
Which is what your current language is,
By a procedural matter, we vote not to do that.
right? Which is why you take that vote in the beginning every time.
Now, see, this is also in our bylaws. So you might argue that I should be able to do that if it's by fiat in the charter or in the special act, but it's also in the bylaws. So if you look at the bylaws, it says, well, okay, I can change what's in the bylaws by having a voter town. So
The one about says town meetings will determine its own rules and order of business. That gives us permission to do what's in it.
Yeah, interesting.
So I guess I don't want to spend too long on this, but are you questioning whether you're allowed to change to, vote by hand?
Yeah, my question was
I
whether
mean, is that
standing vote.
permissible within the four corners of
Yeah.
the charter to make this change? I'm not 100% sure on that. That would be like, you probably had a legal opinion or you wouldn't be doing it.
Town council's there and she doesn't object.
Right.
Hmm.
So,
I leave it alone.
Yeah, I would leave
I
it
mean,
alone.
should we just leave that one
You know,
alone?
and again, I'll throw this out. Unless you want to take it out and put it in the bylaws as the rules of how town meeting operates.
No,
I think that most of this is, you're focusing on the first part of the sentence, but I think what the reason for this sentence is to say that if people vote out to vote, they can ask for a roll vote. Call the roll.
Standing or raising hand is a procedural, it's not a substantive vote.
adopt the vote by raising their hands to so indicate after the vote is announced. And the roll call should be taken and the votes recorded in the journal.
Right, I see what you're saying. There's a standing vote. Let's argue for the moment. What does standing mean? I don't know, but a vote was taken, and now the point of this is to say, if 7 or more people doubt the outcome of that vote by raising their hands, that's what this whole clause is trying to communicate.
And I think if you're standing up, this is why I don't see a lot of hands, because if you're standing up and someone says, I think you got the wrong one, it's a lot more difficult to change your vote and sit down than it is if you've just got your hand up or down and, so it's more of a visual thing. However, keeping in mind, if you want to keep it as it is, keeping in mind, I understand you're going to be are you going to be having a committee about electronic voting, et cetera?
There is such a committee.
So,
I don't hold your breath, don't hold
Okay.
your breath.
but, we don't have to, what you can do is you can think about it, we can leave it as is, you can think about it, and if it,
Well, I think it basically says what we do. I mean,
Well, we had an exception at one point. We had a gentleman come in a wheelchair and he wasn't able to stand up.
That's what I'm worried about too, is how will disabled town meeting members, effectively cast votes?
and there's accommodation is required by law, so,
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be.
Town meeting has to
You
operate.
may decide to change, you can say by standing vote or, other consistent manner or something like that. If you feel strongly about it, we can reword it a little to
I
make
would,
standing vote.
I would suggest you don't have to worry about that because by law, town meeting has to accommodate. That's why we have one person remotely, because it's through the ADA. So if there is someone there,
there is somebody who has difficulty standing,
then what they need to do is talk to me.
but they don't stand because we don't stand. We raise hands.
Right.
So it's not a
But
problem.
there may be times when we stand, or when we have.
Plenty of times when we see
Well, you assume.
Yeah.
if we end up
When
coming.
when the vote is too close to call, and we have a standing count.
Every town meeting, there's at least one standing count.
Right, so, but if there's a person who has that as an issue, they
Yeah.
need to let me know.
Yeah.
And we can accommodate, however we accommodate.
Makes sense.
All right, so it sounds like there is no suggested change to the English around the standing vote. And as to the rest of this paragraph, the fact that people can raise their hands to indicate that they doubt the vote and then call for a roll. And then the moderator at their discretion can also have a roll call vote. It was all, everybody's happy?
Yeah.
But I'm confused. A majority of all the members shall constitute a quorum, but a smaller number may adjourn from time to time and may compel the attendance of absent members in the manner and subject to the penalties prescribed by the rules of the town meeting.
In essence, if we lose our quorum, then the smaller number of the people then the number less than a quorum can move to adjourn and compel the attendance of absent members right then and there. And I can send out the police to go get them.
So if you don't have to have a quorum, if there aren't enough people there, the one vote that the remaining people can take
Is adjourned
is to compel the attendance of the
Right.
others.
or adjourned.
So, or,
The,
yeah.
the argument about taking the one vote for adjourn is from Robert's Rules of Order. And Robert's Rules of Order says that explicitly, but Robert's Rules of Order is also explicitly labeled in the bylaws as the way in which the town meeting will run. So I guess implicitly, both of those things are things that the less than quorum can do. They can do this and they can do adjourn.
But wait, so if people have to sign in for town meeting and then people exit during the course of the 3+ hours that they were sitting there, does the quorum number change?
No,
No.
No, not
So
this
it's
challenge.
based on the original.
the quorum number is the quorum number.
It's based on the
It's
number of
established.
64 people. And if people leave,
They don't sign out.
they don't
They
sign
just
out.
walk out.
So I have no way of knowing what the number is.
But if somebody calls and asks if there's a quorum, then you have to,
Yes.
Then we have to count.
so if enough people
No,
leave,
nobody would ever do that.
oh, yeah,
However,
yeah, right.
If you do, just so you know, if you call for a quorum count and we don't have a quorum, the meeting ends. Right then and there. So those three warrant
why?
articles that we have.
Except that you
Right,
can, you
it
can
shouldn't
have a
end.
vote, someone can have a vote to compel the attendance,
Right, but
which is not gonna happen, but
if it's at 10 o'clock and because people have left,
I mean, practically, that sounds exactly what happens, but technically,
right,
the moment you call for a quorum, all you've done is establish there isn't a quorum, and then the smaller number could vote for the cops to go get everybody, bring them back,
Or to stop the meeting.
or they could vote to adjourn the meeting.
Time check.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're kind of at, the end, 8:30. And we didn't get to that discussion point about the special act and the committee with input from the wish
Yeah,
to discuss the incorporate remote participation, so we probably need to come back to that next time.
yeah, I would love to have said we'd wrap this up this time, but maybe can I just encourage you all to read the rest of it and maybe as we go through, just kind of we'll try to finish up this section and move on to the next because the language isn't as important as the substance. We can fix the language. My note on that last one was just that when we talked about remote, I just made sure that the electronic could standing votes could be recorded electronic, using whatever electronic process. That's what that was for.
Where do you have that?
Right, G, the same page, right, 2 paragraph
Okay.
down.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
second,
Thank you. Okay, so we finished there. So we're starting up on standing committees.
Oh,
Sorry.
I say that we sit.
Huh? All right. Okay, so I think everybody agrees we're gonna adjourn.
We already did.
I know. So now it's legal.
Roll call.
Nice.
Thank you.